We have to always decide where the key terrain is. Where do we want to be to take advantage of the enemy? Where do we put our forces, our weapon systems, our troops, so that they have a notable advantage over the enemy? So their current positions put them in places that are disadvantageous. Those troops should have key terrain that is defendable and gives them a chance to strike at the enemy without having to watch their back all the time. This is the equivalent of getting into a gunfight and not seeking cover, right? You don't step out into the middle of the battlefield with no cover and start firing on the enemy unless you're in a near ambush, in which case we're not in a near ambush. We have a deliberate decision-making process. Where will my troops most affect the enemy? And if the answer is sitting in the middle of the desert, you might want to look at your strategic thinkers on this one. It's not a military principle. My suggestion is, look, we have naval vessels, we have strong points, bases that are well defended, have better air defense, better artillery, better response mechanisms, and we can actually move from those bases into positions to interdict and harass the enemy as necessary. But the idea that we would actually take shots at the enemy while we have troops exposed in very, let's call them outpost-like situations, is a really hostile prospect. And by the way, I've been there. I've been a singleton out on the edge of the world when, if the enemy decided to close in my position, I didn't have a lot going other than my wit and charm.
So, I was just saying, on the Iran-Iraq border, we were on a tiny little outpost. It was about 40 of us. And you can imagine most of our time was spent in perimeter security, not doing a lot of other stuff. So, yeah, I know how vulnerable it is out there for sure.
Yeah, some people look at that as tripwire diplomacy, right? Meaning if this tripwire is triggered, in other words, if some of our troops are hit, well, then the United States is going to have to bring in the heavy guns. My point is we can actually bring in the heavy guns and survive our troops if we position them strategically rather than leave them in disadvantageous positions.